G'day there, and welcome back, or if this is your first time with us, welcome to the Recruitment Truth Bomb series. These are short little snippets of hopefully useful information that might make better results for you during your next recruitment process. And today we're going to look at 5 mistakes that interviewers sometimes make that can really diminish the recruitment process. So let's get into it. So you might have heard the expression scientific method. Now stick with me here, I don't want your eyes to glaze over, but the definition of the scientific method is a method or procedure that consists of systematic observation, measurement and experiment, and the formulation, testing and modification of hypotheses. That's straight from the Oxford English Dictionary, thanks Oxford. But how does that apply to HR? Well, we want to try and apply a systematic observation and measurement to recruitment. HR might not be science per se, but we should still be making our processes as accurate and as relevant as possible. So the 5 mistakes we're going to talk about today are where we muck this up, where we go off the path of a carefully orchestrated scientific process to just random nonsense of a process. So let's get into it. Number 1. Well, this has to come first really. There's no point in critiquing a process if there's no actual process to critique. Sometimes people try and wing it. They have no structure to the process, and this is a big mistake. No interviews, no reference checks, no skill testing, nothing. The hiring manager might just say, oh look, you remember that chap you mentioned the other day? Bring him in for a coffee and if he's any good, we'll bring him on board. Now, without a process, the hiring manager really is just operating on his own or her own intuition, their spidey senses, and that's not much to work on. I've actually been employed once through a process exactly like that. Come in for a coffee, Todd, and see what we'll have a chat. And it was a sales role, and I sucked in that role. And looking back, I'd have to say that the recruitment process was probably part of the reason why they didn't get the person they thought, and I didn't get the role I was expecting. Nice bunch of people, but a doomed business model and a big mistake to recruit without any sort of process at all. Mistake number 2, this is a common one, when the interview questions really don't match what the selection criteria is of the role. I mean, you're asking questions that are just not relevant. And this is partly due sometimes to missing the first step in a recruitment process, and if you've been on a website you know what that is. It's all about job analysis. Job analysis is looking at the position and asking what is it that we're really looking for to fulfill this role. If you miss that step, there's a good chance that you'll have mismatched interview questions as well. For example, is it really necessary to ask questions about teamwork for a programmer who's working alone? Or what about a telemarketer role which is required to just stick to the script? Alright, well maybe if the role is required to just stick to the script, perhaps asking them questions about problem-solving skills is a bit of a red herring. Perhaps you should be dealing more with assessing their communication skills. Mistake number 3 is where the panel comes up with a list of interview questions and then they dive straight into the interviews, but they don't give any pre-thought to the quality of answers that they're expecting. Now, ideally, the panel should discuss the questions together before the interviews and discuss what they think would be good answers. And this gets the panel's thought processes aligned. What's a good answer to this question? What's not a good answer? What would you say is the perfect answer? Covering off on this before the interviews start will make the panel listen out for certain responses. Number 4. Inconsistent questions. Here's another mistake that throws the whole interview process out of whack. If you're trying to compare like with like, apples with apples, then you need to make sure you give the same questions to each applicant. If the question is worth asking to one candidate, it's worth asking them all. Now that doesn't mean you can't ask follow-up questions if required, and really drill down and make sure you're getting the answer from the individual. That's just making sure you're getting valid questions, valid answers out of them. But the base questions should be the same. And last but by no means least, mistake number 5, let's get scientific, people. Score sheets are a must in interviews. If you're doing back-to-back interviews, your brain goes to mush, believe me. You need to have a reference that you can look back at and see how each candidate did with each question. Take notes if you can. Some people struggle with that, but everyone can add a number to a box or circle a number. Score sheets will save you from the failings of your own memory, or, in my case, the inability to do two things at once. Don't go into an interview without a score sheet. And while we're at it, let's talk weights. No, not those sort of weights, you dumbbell. Weightings for each question. Are all interview questions created equal? Maybe, maybe not. That's for the interview panel to decide before the interviews begin. You might decide all of the questions relate to something of equal importance, or you might think that some factors are a must-have, whereas other factors are just desirable only. In that case, you'd give a higher weight to those questions in the must-have category. So there you have it, folks. Short and sweet. It's not rocket science, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't put a bit of scientific rigour into this process. I hope you've got something out of Truth Bomb number 2. If so, show me a little love with the like button down on your screen. Subscribe to what's coming up next. I've got lots of things to talk about. More great content on its way. recruitmentselectionprocess.com is my website. Go there for lots of great resources to do your own recruitment process. This is HR Guy, and I'd like to thank you for watching.